And here's what I'd like to I'd like to say. You know, is first of all, is it possible for a normal human being to accept the kind of coercion, the kind of temptation, the kind of bribery that we've been subjected to for so long? You know, like how much money would you take to, kill your mother? Or how much, coercion would it take for you to steal from your neighbor's children and cause them to starve? Is that normal human behavior? Aren't we all humanity? Aren't we all connected? Don't we have empathy for each other? I mean, when you look at your neighbor or someone, in the media and you feel sympathy for them because they're suffering, doesn't that make you feel like you want to help them? Isn't that a normal human reaction?
Correct.
I think
It
you would
is.
agree. I think
Yes,
everyone would
I agree.
agree.
That's right.
Because there are many things that we will all agree on. And that is
Hmm.
that we should all be, reasonably well cared for, and we should help each other. If someone comes to your door and asks for food because they're hungry, are you going to say no? Are you going to say, "Oh, it's your fault that you're hungry. You didn't work hard enough today. Get the hell off of my porch"? No, you're not going to say that because,
No.
even if you might be thinking that's a possibility, you would never refuse to provide food to someone who's starving. Because
Right.
that's not what humans do. Humans are naturally together in a communal consciousness, and we realize that we're one big family deep down.
Correct.
Okay?
That's right.
So, how could it be that we live in a world of such depravity? How could it be that we live in a world of such inequality? How could it be that we live in a world of such violence, suffering, meanness, deceit, and perhaps even worse? And I'm not going to go into details about what could be worse, but let's just say cannibalism and then leave it at that.
Right.
Okay? In other words,
Sure.
feeding off each other. Well, that's the worst thing that you can possibly imagine, in my view. So
Right.
how could this be possible? Is it a natural situation or is it an artificial one?
I think it's an artificial one. It's not normal.
Correct. It's not normal.
Yes. It's not normal.
Not at all. Not in the least. And if something's not normal, there must have been a cause. There must
That's
have
right.
been something that pushed us out of normality into unbalanced abnormality.
Correct.
And what was that? Did we do it to ourselves? Did we wake up one day and decide to be evil? Did we wake up one
No, I
day
think
and
there are some kind of evil influences surrounding us over many, many generations.
are they unseen?
Yes.
Are they unstoppable because we don't know where they are, who they are, or what they are?
I would say so, yes.
Now, there is people that tell us that they know the answer to these questions, that they do know
Okay.
who is
Okay.
doing it, why they're doing it, what they're doing,
Right.
but it's so hidden from us that it's hard for us to believe.
Uh-huh.
And we've heard stories about the fact that humanity is being harvested, that it's being
Correct.
kept in a controlled artificial mechanism whereby our very spiritual energies are being tapped and farmed, and that we are victims of some kind of diabolical, extraneous control mechanism that's designed to keep us in slavery and exploitation.
Sure.
Now, the problem with that is that we can't understand the truth of that because we're told every day that starvation is just bad luck, that natural disasters is what's causing all of these terrible problems, that there's something wrong with you if you've lost your house, lost your job, and become a drug addict. In other words, it's all your fault. Or if it's not your fault,
Right.
it's just random chance or a so-called natural disaster. In other words, it's nature that did it, and you can't stop that because it's out of your control.
That distorted perception was introduced and reinforced onto us, into our minds,
Right.
for quite some time. I
Yes.
would say over the matter of a few, if not many generations,
Mm-hmm.
humanity gradually turns cold.
Right.
No longer are they as caring as they ought to be,
Mm-hmm.
even though they are, we humans have evolved to become fairly, if not highly intelligent beings,
Yes.
loving each other, caring for one another,
Yes.
living in a community manners,
Mm-hmm.
strive and to thrive and strive together
Yes.
as a tribe.
Mm-hmm.
That idea has gradually been taken down,
Mm-hmm.
disassembled, if not, the viewpoints have been distorted. The best example is
Yes.
people who lives in the city are the more the more the more concentrated cities that we typically refer to as metropolitan,
Yes.
such as Vancouver, Toronto, or New York City.
Mm-hmm.
People who lives in these major city areas tends to be very cold. Cold as in, they walk alongside of one another as though they just behave like strangers. Neighbors always have their eyes, on one another as though their neighbor's gonna rob them and steal them
Right.
right around the corner.
Uh-huh.
When I mean, even something as small as you walk into a supermarket, lining up at the cashier,
Mm-hmm.
try to pay for a bag of chips. You no longer see a smile on their face. No, they warmly greet you in front of the cashier's till.
Correct. And I would say
Okay,
even
people
further.
turn
Yes.
extremely cold and become strangers over time. Things that shouldn't happen that way.
No, they shouldn't.
I
And
seem to
yeah.
recall. I seem to recall when I first came to this city
Yes.
many decades ago.
Mm-hmm.
People were still somewhat warm and friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, walking past the supermarket till, I mean, at least the cashier was still, greeted me and say hi, how you doing? The weather is nice, blah blah blah,
Right.
something like that. Fast forward to this day, no, dead silent and cold. Okay,
Well, that's because the cashier is on a work permit from Guatemala, and they've been brought to this country and promised a huge wage. And you know what? The supermarket that hired that immigrant thinks that they're paying them $17 an hour, but actually they hired that person from a an agency, a middleman, a broker. And as was just recently revealed in the newspapers in Toronto, uh, there's gangs of international criminals that bring workers into this country of Canada and promise large wages, but actually they collect the wages after the work week is over or the work month is over because they have to pay to live on mattresses in a bed bug infested basement apartment in some slum,
right.
and that's the cost that they have to pay. And then they're given, instead of $17 an hour, where they were farmed out to their workplace, they get $50 a month to send back to their families in Guatemala or another South American country, and everything else was expenses. So
Right,
that's the reality. And of course, if they complain, then they'll be deported because they're here
right,
illegitimately.
right.
And this is the reality. So in other words, we don't have neighborhoods anymore.
Hmm.
Guess what we have? We have WEF globalism
Mm,
because that's what they espouse. They
right.
espouse moving the cost of production to the cheapest area with the lowest wages, and moving the cost of labor to from the lowest area to you.
Right.
And that's what they're doing around the world right now. Now, as another aspect of this is the nuclear family.
Right.
I'm not sure about Asia so much, which is a different situation a little bit. But in traditional Western society, we would have the grandparents living in the family home with the mother, the father, and the children. And
Mm-hmm.
there was a reason for that. The reason for that was
Mm-hmm.
because if childcare was needed,
Right.
grandparents would be there.
Right.
If wisdom and knowledge was needed,
That's right.
grandparents would be there.
Sure.
If whatever was needed, it could be provided as necessary, such as security, having someone at home at all times, etc.,
Yeah.
and vice versa. If
That's
the
right.
elders required medical attention, some kind of therapy,
Right.
then the younger members of the family were there to help and provide that.
Certainly.
And
Certainly.
and and then all of a sudden we have this concept of, oh no, you're going to leave. You're going to go and get your own apartment. You're going to have your
Mm-hmm.
independence. You're going to have your own home.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? You're going to
Mm-hmm.
buy another set of washing machines and
Mm-hmm.
another TV. And there's a whole set of appliances that are going to be duplicated.
Right.
Now that's going to be good for the for the economy, isn't it? We're not sharing anymore. Now we need double of everything. Oh, and what about the
Right.
transportation expenses? Oh, and what about the oil and gas usage? And oh, what about
Mm.
the inefficiencies involved in now you have the state taking care of your emergencies instead of the
Right.
family taking care of them.
Sure.
And this has been, I would say, a long-term project of fractionalization
Sure.
and chopping up the loving cords and binds that keep a family together and making us into disparate parts which can be separated
Correct.
and controlled.
Correct. Well, come to think of it, we're the worst of the living things on the earth, citing that the biggest land mammals on the surface of the earth, aka elephant,
Yes.
they actually have a matriarchal system
Mm-hmm.
where the youngs were raised and tag along with the mother and the grandmothers, and sometimes when some of them for whatever reasons they're orphaned, the young ones, some different female elephants of
Yes.
mother's age will come along and pick up on that orphan and take it under her wings and carry on with the rest of the system,
Of
carry
course.
along with the rest of the system.
Because there are
So
no orphans. It's all one big family.
that's right. So what does that entail? To me, the way I interpret it is that even elephants are way more intelligent and more tribal than us modern day human
Well,
beings.
let's look at a child who's lost their parents because of divorce. There's
Right.
no grandparents there to smooth things over.
That's right.
So they become, hostile,
Correct.
delinquent,
Correct.
drug addicted,
Correct.
institutionalized,
That's right.
and incarcerated in prison.
Correct.
And that creates what? It creates an economic situation. It creates an entire economy of prison guards, police officers, counselors, drug addiction interveners.
Yep. Yep.
The list is endless. They become,
It inevitably helps to feed the evil system that we now live in.
it does. And you know why? And you know why we accept this is because we actually believe that these people are being helped. We actually
Correct.
believe that this whole system is somehow legitimate
Right.
and necessary, where it's not. It's not, because it's like saying, "Oh, we're going to have a fire. And the people who get burned are going to be treated by the best medical specialists. And all their burns are going to be, bandaged, and we're going to have medicine for them.
Right.
Well, of course, but why did we have the fire in the first place? You didn't need to have that fire. You didn't need to burn anybody.
That's right.
You didn't need to break up those families. You didn't need to have those social pressures. Those things were all unnecessary. But it's part of our society. And that society has been designed in a toxic manner. And it's been constructed in a destructive mechanism of depravity. I would call it satanic. I would call it evil. This kind of thing is not accidental. It's not just something that happens. Humans are not designed to live in a system like that. It's part of our control mechanism, and what it is designed to do is sap our power, our energy, and eventually leave us destitute, impoverished, and perhaps addicted.
Correct.
Stop.